Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the Policy Innovation Partnership Grants, a new funding opportunity here at SSHRC. I'll be referring to it as PIPG moving forward. And just a heads up that this webinar is being recorded. Your names and questions will not be recorded, only the presentation, and we'll make it available in the coming weeks on the PIPG website. I'm Adam, a Senior Program Officer in the Research Partnerships portfolio here at SSHRC, and I'm joined by three colleagues, Caroline, the Program Officer who is assigned to PIPG, and will be co-presenting with me today. Our manager, Anna, is also with us, and Stephanie, another Program Officer in our team, is also here. And we have Grant Gibson with us from the Canadian Research Data Center Network. Towards the end of the webinar, Grant will be giving a short intro to the CRDCN and the data sets that may be relevant to this call. If you have any questions during the presentation or at the end, you can use the chat box. But if your questions are highly specific or complicated, please send them to us by email instead so that we can focus on the more general questions today. Anna and Stephanie may be responding to some of your questions directly in the chat box during the presentation. And at the end, we can also enable your mics if you'd like to ask your question verbally. You'll just have to use the raise hand button. Okay, so here's an outline of the presentation. We're going to go over PIPG's key characteristics, the target area for 2025, the timeline, the application and grant requirements, the merit review process, and then we'll cover some of the more substantive application components. After that, we're going to pass it over to Grant and then respond to your questions. So Carol, over to you.
So the goal of the PIPG funding opportunity is to support a partnership between a post-secondary research entity and one or more federal government organization to establish a long-term research program focusing on specific topics in an area of importance to Canada. We will explain what a research entity means in the following slides. This goal is supported by the objective of engaging government to identify and address policy needs, generating knowledge to inform policymaking, working with data sets that are relevant to policymaker, improving access and use of research in policymaking, and finally supporting training for students and postdocs. The value and duration of PIPG is up to 6 million over 15 years. The new Policy Innovation Partnership Grants are institutional application, meaning that the applicant is the host institution and the project director prepares and submits the application on its behalf. PIPG is a strategic grant in that each competition will focus on a specific target area where long-term research from the social science and humanities has the potential for significant impact. This grant has been designed to provide a high level of flexibility to the successful team. We recognize that much can change over 15 years, so there is flexibility to adapt and change course so long as it continues to meet the policy-related needs of its federal partner or partners. I have two other key characteristics to mention. The first is about call frequency. Unlike SSHRC's other regular funding opportunity, PIPG will not be launched on a fixed schedule. Instead, it will be offered every so often, possibly every other year. I want to draw your attention to an important feature of this funding opportunity outlined in the second bullet, which is that we will only be funding one application per competition. We encourage applicants to seek out and collaborate with others on joint submission where appropriate. For example, if your proposal focuses strongly on supply chain management issues, and there are other groups that are considering the same approach, you may be able to strengthen your application by working together. Or if two or more different groups from the same institution are considering applying, you may want to explore a joint submission. There is a co-director role available in this funding opportunity, so governance can be designed in a way that allows for strong coordination and shared intellectual leadership.
Thanks, Carol. So now we're moving to the selected target area for the 2025 competition, which is improving Canada's productivity. As I'm sure you know, Canada's productivity has been a concern in recent months and years. To help address this, PIPG's first competition is targeting research to inform public policy that can drive productivity and efficiency gains for Canadian companies. In the second bullet, we list several examples of research topics, but this is not an exhaustive list, and you're welcome to focus on multiple areas or other areas altogether, so long as they relate to productivity. We're going to talk about the evaluation criteria a little later on, but the third bullet is on the screen is meant to stress that it's important for your application to demonstrate how the proposed research would contribute substantially to the development of actionable public policies that can help improve Canada's productivity. Quick slide here on the timeline. We launched this funding opportunity on February 19th, and the application deadline is September 10th, meaning you have roughly 7 months to prepare your applications. Merit review will likely take place at the end of 2025, and results should be available in January 2026. Back to you, Carol.
The next 3 slides identify some of the important application and grant requirements. The first one is a unique requirement for SSHRC. The application should be based within an established research entity at a post-secondary institution that has demonstrated track record related to the issue and challenges associated with productivity. We provide a few examples of the type of entities that we mean, but it could also be a department within the institution. Committee members will be asked to assess the track record of the entity as part of the merit review, which we'll discuss a little bit more later on. The second requirement is that at least one federal government organization must be involved as a partner for the application to be eligible. This doesn't mean that organizations from other level of government or from the private and nonprofit sectors aren't permitted. Applicants are encouraged to involve other organizations as partner if their involvement would strengthen the proposal. The requirement here is that at least one partner must be federal, given the call's focus on strengthening Canadian policymaking in the target area. And the last requirement on the slide concerns contribution. So a plan to secure at least 50% of the amount requested from SSHRC must be provided, and at least 25% must be in the form of cash contribution. So if the full $6 million is requested from SSHRC, you must plan to secure at least $3 million in contribution over the 15-year duration, and at least $1.5 million must be in cash, while the remainder can be in kind.
Oops, sorry. I'll move back.
Go back 1.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
A data management plan, or DMP, describing how research data will be managed over the life of the grant is required as part of the application. A link to DMP guidelines that may be helpful can be found in the application instruction. If you've applied to SSHRC within the past year or so, you may already be familiar with the policy requirement around sensitive technology research area. You'll be asked to confirm if your application aims to advance one of these areas, and if so, will be provided instructions on how to proceed. The third bullet relates to the tri-agency CV, or TCV. We'll talk a little bit more about this later in the presentation, but here we're just highlighting that the TCV must be used for this funding opportunity. Since most researchers, and especially non-academic participants, won't have a TCV yet, please invite them well in advance of the application deadline. And the last point here is about succession planning. So given the long duration of these grants, applicants are asked to provide a succession plan to ensure continued success in the likely event of staffing changes over the 15 years of the grant, and this is part of the evaluation criteria. While the previous two slides dealt with application requirements, this slide deals with two grant requirements worth mentioning. The first is about open access. All peer-reviewed journal articles that result from the grant must be made available online. This is in advance of the renewal of the tri-agency open access policy, which will require immediate open access across all funding opportunity. And just in case you aren't already aware, the cost associated with open access publishing is an eligible grant expense. The second is about the impact reviews that will be conducted twice during the life of the grant. The first impact review will be conducted at the 5 or 6 year point, and the second at the 10 or 11 year point. More details will be provided about these reviews at the time that the grant is awarded, but it will be designed to address the ongoing relevance of the partnership and the extent to which the knowledge generated from the grant is being shared and used by the federal government partner or partners in policymaking.
Okay, now we're moving on to merit review. So PIPG will use a single stage application process without external assessors. Applications will be reviewed by a multidisciplinary committee that includes relevant expertise from the post-secondary research community, but also the non-academic sectors. Applications will be evaluated based on three main criteria and a number of sub-criteria. Challenge is worth 40% of the score and covers things like the potential for policy impact, the methodology, and training plans. Feasibility is worth 30% and covers things like the governance arrangements, knowledge mobilization plans, and the budget. And capability is worth the remaining 30% and covers the track record of the team and of the research entity itself. And the last point on the slide is about the data management plan, or DMP. While a DMP is a required part of the application, it will not be explicitly evaluated. The committee will have access to it and may provide feedback on its quality, but there's not an evaluation criteria about it. That said, the applicants may discuss the key elements and principles of their data management plans in other relevant sections of the application, which will be scored. And now we're moving on to the actual preparation of an application. So PIPG will be using our convergence portal, which may be new to many of you. There are two screenshots on the slide. The top one is what the convergence portal looks like when you first access it. And the second one shows where you can start a PIPG application once you've gained access. So you need to select the Funding Opportunities tab and then select Create Application in the relevant row. There are three main parts to the application. We're covering the first one here, the participant eligibility flow. This is where the project director must provide information about their affiliations and expertise. You'll also have to accept the terms and conditions before you can begin the application. The second main part of the application covered on this slide is the My Information section. This is where the participant provides their education, affiliations, notes any career interruptions, and uploads their tri-agency CV. There will be a My Information section for the project director and all of the invited co-directors or co-applicants, but not for collaborators. Over to you, Carol.
Thank you. This slide is focusing specifically on the tri-agency CV document. The TCV instruction and template can be found on SSHRC-CRSH's website as well as FNQs. For those new to the TCV, it's a narrative style CV with 3 sections. So the first section is a personal statement. The second one is the most significant contribution or experience. And finally, the third one is supervisory and mentorship activities. For those completing the TCV in English, it cannot exceed 5 pages, and this extends to 6 pages for those completing it in French. Once you have finished your TCV, it must be converted to PDF and uploaded to the application in Convergence. Since it's new, we recommend taking a look at the template soon and giving yourself ample time to complete it. I'm now moving on to the third main part, which is the most substantive. This part is called shared information because it's the main application that the team puts together. We've bolded the section that we're going to cover in a bit more depth over the next few slides. So we'll cover invitation, participant, partner organization, and supporting documents. So this slide is about the invitation module. This is where you will invite co-directors, co-applicants, and collaborators to join your application. Once you enter their names and contact information, they will be sent an email with a link to join. They must then follow a similar participant eligibility flow that the project director went through. This is where the process ends for collaborator. They have done all they need to do and they don't need to upload a TCV. Co-directors and co-applicants must then complete the same My Information section that the project director completed, including by uploading a tri-agent CCV. This slide deals with the participant module of the application. It displays the status of those who have been invited to participate in the application. The project director is responsible for finalizing the information of the relevant participant before they are officially part of the application. If an invited co-applicant does not complete their section of the application, including uploading a TCV, the project director will need to remove them from the application before being able to submit to their research administrator. So again, we advise that project director make sure that this is all taken care of well in advance of the September 10th application deadline to avoid having to remove someone from the application.
Okay, this slide is about the partner organizations module. Partners are not invited through the Convergence portal like participants are. Instead, the project director must enter basic details about the partner to have them included in the application. They'll also have to collect a letter of engagement from each partner and upload these letters in the supporting documents module. The host institution should not be included as a partner since it's the applicant. We'll talk about where the host letter should be uploaded in the next couple slides. All right, the next few slides will deal with the supporting documents that are required. There's a full list of them on the screen here, and we'll be going over the bolded ones in a bit more detail. Each bullet represents a document that has to be uploaded to the portal. You'll notice that for the budget justification, we've highlighted that the maximum number of pages is 4. This is because the application form incorrectly states that the maximum is 2. This should be updated in the system within the next few days, but we wanted to highlight it here for anyone who may have already started an application. So for clarity, the budget justification maximum is 4 pages, not 2. The most substantive supporting document is the research program description. The instructions get into the sections in much more detail, but it covers things like the goal, methods, lit review, expected outcomes, training and mentoring, knowledge mobilization, and governance. Well, the number of pages for each component are only suggestions. Altogether, this document can't exceed 15 pages. This slide covers the 2 supporting documents where a SSHRC template is provided. The first is funds requested from SSHRC. The format should be familiar to anyone who's submitted a SSHRC application before because we've designed it to look just like the form you use in our legacy application system. You have to download the document from the portal, complete the information for all 15 years, save it as a PDF, and then upload it back into the portal. And the same is it's the same for the funds from other sources document, where you will add the confirmed and unconfirmed contributions over the 15 years. So the 2 screenshots only show the first few years, but in the actual templates, you'll be able to scroll down or to the side to see all 15 years.
So
Carol,
this
over to you.
slide, thanks, Adam. This slide is about the narrative document that are linked to the Excel document that Adam just mentioned. The first is the budget justification document, which, as a reminder, is a maximum of 4 pages. Because the grant period is so long, we ask you to be the most detailed in the first 5 years. You still need to justify the budget for years 6 through 15, but we'll be asking the Merit Review Committee to focus more closely on the first 5 years. The successful team will need to submit updated budgets during their impact reviews, so that's where budget items will be more closely scrutinized for these later years. The other document is the contribution plan. This is where you'll explain your plan to secure contribution throughout the life of the grant. Same with the budget justification. We ask that you provide more details for the first 5 years, and updated contribution document will be required for the impact review. This slide covers the host institution submission, which includes the host letter of engagement and a description of the research entity's track record in the target area. The track record should demonstrate the capacity of the research entity as it relates to the capability sub-criteria. So its published output, its knowledge mobilization activities and impacts on public policy and other areas, its contribution to training, and its experience in partnership or other long-term research initiative. And lastly, this slide is about the letter of engagements from partners. You'll need to collect these from your partners, combine them as a single PDF, and then upload them into the Convergence portal. Each letter should cover the relevance and significance to the partner, its involvement in the research program, the contribution that it will be making, and the expected outcome that the partner hopes to achieve. What you see here is just a summary, so please take a look at the instruction for the more detailed requirements. I'll now give the floor to Grant from the Canadian Research Data Center Network, who will present the next slide.
Hi. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Grant Gibson. I'm Assistant Director of Research and Evaluation at the Canadian Research Data Center Network, or CRDCN. We are the national research infrastructure for quantitative social science and population health that provide access to Statistics Canada microdata to researchers at over 45 universities across the country. At SSHRC's request, we've agreed to work with the successful partnership proposal to do, sort of anything related to sensitive data or data access in our system and facilitate that. So that could include implementing your data management planning, open science practices with restricted data, talking and working with Statistics Canada to sort of get the data set that you need. And we are not this time participating as a partner organization on applications. So we'll just guarantee that we'll work with whomever is successful. I did want to talk briefly about a couple of the data sets that might be useful. So if you're familiar with sort of the business data that we hold or have held, you might be familiar with the SEED, the Canadian Employee Dynamic Database. If you haven't worked in this space in a couple of years, you might not know about the BEAM, which is the Business Employee Analytical Microdata. It's a cut of commonly requested variables from the SEED that's a little easier to access. If you do require some of the variables from the SEED, we can work with you to get a cut of that data and make it available. So I've just posted a link to that microdata set in the chat there, and there's a couple resources, including a presentation from Statistics Canada and a data dictionary in there. If you're applying, you should be aware that the business data in the RDCs is not eligible for remote access. And so you should make sure that someone from your research team who's responsible for accessing the data is able to get to one of the over 30 centers across the country to do the analysis, if that's your plan, is to use RDC data. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Grant. I'm going to stop the recording now and we'll go to questions. So just give me a minute here.